This story is titled, In a Cruel Twist of Fate, My Disloyal Wife and Her Contemptible Lover Chose the Seat Next to Mine at the Bar. Hey Reddit, I'm a 31-year-old cybersecurity consultant living in San Diego. I've been married to Lisa for 5 years, and I honestly thought everything in our relationship was perfect. Looking back now, I should have known better. Last Thursday night, I was sitting at home watching Netflix when my friend Anthony called me up and convinced me to go out. You need to loosen up, Greg, he said with his usual enthusiasm. Anthony had no idea about the problems I'd been having with Lisa. He didn't know about her late nights, the secret phone calls she took in another room, or how emotionally cold she'd become toward me over the past few months. I hadn't told anyone about my suspicions, partly because I didn't want to believe them myself. We ended up at some fancy cocktail bar downtown. Definitely not my usual scene. I was nursing my third whiskey, trying to forget my problems, when my whole world came crashing down around me. Lisa walked in, but she wasn't alone. She was with some guy I'd never seen before. Tall, muscular, the type who clearly spent hours at the gym. He was wearing an expensive suit like he owned the place. The sound of her laugh hit my ears like broken glass. I watched her touch his arm in that familiar way she used to touch mine, and I could see that spark in her eyes. A spark I hadn't seen in months when she looked at me. I sat in the shadows, watching this nightmare unfold in front of me. They didn't notice me at first, but then by some cruel twist of fate, they chose to sit at the table right next to mine. What were the odds? I felt like I was trapped in some sick joke, and all I wanted to do was disappear into the floor. But destiny had other plans for me that night. The gym bro got up from his seat and walked straight to my table. He put his hand on my shoulder with a smug grin spreading across his face. Well, look who's here, he said, his voice dripping with mockery. How does it feel watching her when she's not yours anymore? She's my toy now. He leaned in closer, his breath hot on my ear. I'm going to the bathroom. Better be gone when I get back. My blood was boiling in my veins, and I could feel my fists clenching under the table. I looked over at Lisa, who was just sipping her drink, acting like nothing was happening, like she didn't even see me sitting there. I stood up from my table and approached her, my heart pounding violently in my chest. Does it bring you pleasure? I asked, my voice coming out sharp as a razor. Humiliating me in public like this? Lisa turned to me with a smirk on her face that I barely recognized. This wasn't the woman I married. What's your problem, Greg? She said nonchalantly. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She continued, maybe if you weren't so boring, this wouldn't have happened. Before I could respond, Jim Bro returned from the bathroom. Hey, loser, you're still here? His voice thick with contempt. Something inside me snapped. Years of military training kicked in, and I grabbed his arm in one swift motion, twisting it just right. A loud crack echoed through the bar as I broke his arm. He dropped to the floor, screaming in pain. The entire bar went silent, everyone staring at us, but I didn't give a single fuck anymore. Lisa jumped up, her face twisted with rage. What the hell is wrong with you? She screamed. It was funny how she was defending him rather than being concerned about me, her husband. I was done with this shit. Done with her lies, done with the betrayal, done with the humiliation. I walked out of the bar, leaving them both behind. My heart was pounding in my chest, but it wasn't from fear or confusion. It was from clarity. It was time to take back control of my life. The cold night air hit my face as I stepped outside, feeling like a wake-up call. My chest was heaving, and my mind was spinning with everything I'd just witnessed. The betrayal sat heavy in my gut, but it was the fury that drove me forward as I marched straight to my car. My phone started buzzing as soon as I got to the car. Of course it was Lisa. Greg, we need to talk now, read her first message, followed immediately by, Greg, you're acting insane. I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat and gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I sat there thinking about her nerve, calling me insane when she was the one who had destroyed everything. She was the one who had shredded our trust. She was the one parading around with her boy toy right in front of me. I kept replaying the bar scene in my head, her laugh with him, the way she looked at me with those cold eyes. That wasn't my wife anymore. Not the woman I married. Not the one who used to light up my world. This was someone else entirely. Someone who'd let another man mock me in public. Someone who'd kiss another man's cheek while I watched. Someone who'd thrown away 5 years like they meant nothing. Finally, I picked up my phone and dialed her number. She answered on the first ring. What the hell is wrong with you, Greg? She snapped, her voice sharp with anger. You broke his arm. Are you out of your mind? What's wrong with me? I hissed back. You walk into a bar with some scumbag, let him humiliate me in front of everyone, and I'm the one with the problem? Are you hearing yourself? You didn't have to attack him, she replied coldly. God, you're so dramatic. Dramatic? My laugh came out bitter and hollow. Is that what you call standing up for myself? Maybe if I'd done it sooner, I wouldn't be in this mess. There was silence on the line. For a moment, I thought she might apologize. I thought she might show some remorse for what she'd done. But no. Her next words were like knives in my chest. Well, maybe if you weren't so predictable and boring, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. I almost dropped the phone. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Predictable? Boring? Is that her excuse for destroying our marriage? You're unbelievable! My voice was low and trembling with rage. After everything I've done for you, for us, this is how you repay me? By blaming me for your selfishness? Selfishness, she shouted. You think I'm selfish for wanting to feel alive again? You don't get it, Greg. You've been checked out for years. All you care about is your stupid job and your stupid routines. I needed more, and you weren't giving it to me. I sat there stunned, not just by her words, but by the venom in her voice and her complete lack of guilt. She wasn't sorry. She didn't care that she had destroyed me. Lisa, my voice turned cold. We're done. What's that supposed to mean? She demanded. It means you can stay with your gym rat boyfriend. Enjoy whatever thrill he gives you, but I'm not going to be your safety net anymore. I'm done being your backup plan. She started to say something, but I hung up before she could finish. I didn't want to hear more excuses or accusations. I drove home with my thoughts in a complete mess. Wedding memories flashed through my mind. Her smile on that day. Her eyes full of love and promise. How did we go from that to this? Was I really as absent as she claimed? Or was it just another lie to justify her actions? When I got home, the silence in the house hit me differently. It felt deafening, oppressive. Our wedding photo on the mantle seemed to mock me. I couldn't stand looking at it, so I ripped it down and shoved it in a drawer. I sat on the couch with my head in my hands, trying to process what would come next. Divorce seemed inevitable, but the thought of unraveling our life together, dividing the house, the finances, the memories, made my stomach churn. Then I thought about her lover again, his smug face calling me a cuckold, daring me to react. I didn't regret breaking his arm. If anything, I wished I'd done more. But I knew violence wouldn't fix this situation. I needed to think strategically. I needed to be smarter than them. I needed to protect myself. The next morning, my first step was to call a lawyer. Greg, good that you're calling now, the lawyer said, sounding confident and reassuring. The sooner we act, the better. Do you have access to your financial records? Joint accounts? Anything that might show hidden funds or suspicious activity? The phrase, suspicious activity, hit me like a freight train. Lisa had been acting strange for months, and I had ignored all the signs. How much had she been hiding from me? I spent the rest of the day investigating, digging through bank statements, checking emails, and going through her social media accounts. What I found made my blood boil. There were unexplained withdrawals, hotel receipts, and messages that left no doubt about the extent of her betrayal. It was massive, systemic, and had been going on for longer than I'd suspected. By the time I finished my investigation, my resolve was solid. This wasn't just about ending our marriage anymore. It was about reclaiming my dignity and making sure she faced consequences for her actions. I wasn't going to let her walk away unscathed. The next morning felt surreal, like I was living someone else's nightmare. But the evidence spread out on my kitchen table was undeniably mine. Bank statements, text screenshots, hotel receipts, all painting a vivid picture of Lisa's double life. Each detail was like a fresh wound, but not knowing would have hurt even more. I was halfway through organizing everything when the front door burst open. Lisa stormed in, her face flushed with anger. What the hell is this, Greg? She demanded, waving her phone in my face. You blocked me? Won't even let me explain? I stared at her, my exhaustion giving way to cold fury. Explain what? My voice came out low and controlled. How you thought I wouldn't notice? The late nights? The secret phone calls? The way you jump when I entered the room? Don't insult me, Lisa. Her expression shifted. Her initial rage faltered, but then she doubled down, true to form. This is what you do, isn't it? She said accusingly. Play the victim instead of admitting your part in all this? Do you think I wanted to cheat? Do you think I wanted to go behind your back? I couldn't believe her audacity. You didn't just go behind my back, I said, my voice rising. You turned it into a spectacle. That man humiliated me in front of the entire bar, and you sat there like it was some joke. She crossed her arms and scoffed at me. Oh, come on! You're acting like a little bar fight changes anything. It's not like you've been the perfect husband. Do not try to flip this on me. I slammed my hand on the table. Whatever issues we had, you could have talked to me. Instead, you decided to rip our marriage apart. Because what? You wanted something new and exciting? Lisa rolled her eyes, a smirk playing on her lips. New and exciting? Maybe, Greg. But let's not pretend you didn't see this coming. You've been emotionally absent for years. I was lonely and I cut her off, my voice sharp as a blade. Spare me your sob story, Lisa. Loneliness doesn't justify betrayal. And it sure as hell doesn't excuse parading your affair around town like some twisted badge of honor. Her smirk vanished, replaced by a hard glare. Well, maybe if you weren't such a control freak, I wouldn't have needed to find someone who actually made me feel alive. My laugh came out bitter. Control freak? That's rich coming from someone who's been controlling the narrative of our life behind my back. But you know what? Keep blaming me, Lisa. It makes it easier to see who you really are. The tension between us was suffocating. She stood there, arms crossed, waiting for me to crumble, waiting for me to break. But I was past that point now. Do you know what's funny? My voice came out eerily calm. I found the hotel receipts, the texts, all of it. So whatever excuse you think you can give me, just know I've seen the truth. And you know what? It's uglier than I ever thought you could be. She stood speechless. I finally saw cracks in her facade, but the moment didn't last. She snapped right back to attack mode. Fine, she said coldly. If you've already decided I'm the villain, then I guess I have nothing else to say. But don't pretend like you're some saint. You checked out of this marriage long before I did. I shook my head and exhaled a bitter laugh. And there it is. The deflection. The lack of accountability. The classic Lisa move. Well, you know what? You're right. I'm not a saint, but at least I can say I was faithful. Her face hardened as she grabbed her purse. I don't have to stand here and listen to this. If you're so eager to play the victim, go ahead. But don't expect me to grovel for your forgiveness. You're not worth it. She turned and walked out the door, slamming it behind her. The silence hit hard, but it was different now. It felt like relief. Like for the first time in months, I wasn't walking on eggshells, not second-guessing every word, not questioning every action. The air felt lighter, even if my heart felt shredded. I stared at the table full of evidence, the weight of it all sinking in. There was no fixing this. Lisa wasn't just unfaithful. She was cruel. The person I had built my life with was a complete stranger now. She had burned every bridge back to the person I thought I knew. That evening, I met with my lawyer again. Greg, she said after hearing everything, you have more than enough grounds for divorce, but we need to act quickly to secure your assets and make sure she can't manipulate the situation. Do you have joint accounts? Or property? I nodded slowly and slid over the documents I had collected. She doesn't know I've been gathering this. I wanted all my ducks in a row before she pulled any stunts. My lawyer gave a faint smile. Smart move. Let's make sure she doesn't blindside you. When I got home that night, I expected the house to feel emptier, but it didn't. It felt clearer, like a fog had lifted. For the first time in months, I knew exactly where I stood. I wouldn't let her betrayal define me, and I wouldn't let her walk away unscathed. The next morning, I woke up with a new clarity. The weight of uncertainty was gone, replaced by cold, calculated resolve. If Lisa thought she could walk all over me, humiliate me, and walk away without consequences, she was dead wrong. My first priority was financial security. My lawyer had laid out every scenario, every way Lisa might try to exploit the situation, and every step I needed to take to protect myself. I spent hours working on it, freezing joint accounts, securing personal assets, making sure there was nothing left for Lisa to manipulate. Each call I made and each document I signed was a reminder that I was taking control again. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. Greg, we need to figure out the house. I don't want to fight about it. I smirked at the irony. After all her drama, now she wanted peace? I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the message to my lawyer. I was done playing Lisa's games. As the day went on, my anger kept simmering. It wasn't enough to just end things cleanly. Lisa hadn't just broken my heart. She had dragged my dignity through the mud. She deserved a taste of her own medicine, and I was feeling petty enough to give it to her. That evening, I called Anthony, my best friend, and told him everything. Anthony isn't the type to sugarcoat things, and his reaction didn't disappoint. She did what? He yelled. Greg, you're handling this way better than me. If it were me, I'd be spreading her dirty laundry all over town. I laughed at first, but the idea lingered. Anthony was joking mostly, but there was something satisfying about the thought of exposing Lisa for who she really was. She had no problem flaunting her betrayal. Maybe it was time for the truth to catch up with her. Later that week, an opportunity presented itself when our mutual friend Claire reached out. She had heard rumors about the bar incident and wanted to know what had happened. Normally, I wouldn't share such personal details, but this time, I didn't hold back. She cheated, I told her flatly. Not just cheated, paraded her affair in public. The guy even mocked me to my face, and she sat there and let it happen. Claire's jaw dropped. Are you serious? I can't believe she'd do that. Oh, believe it, I told her. And don't worry, I'm making sure she doesn't rewrite the narrative. People deserve to know the truth. Words spread fast. Within days, everyone in our social circle knew what Lisa had done. The whispers and sideways glances she used to aim at me were now pointed at her. I didn't stop there. I started gathering everything to strengthen my divorce case. Pictures, texts, bank statements, anything showing her betrayal in black and white. My lawyer assured me that with this kind of evidence, the settlement would favor me heavily. It wasn't about the money, though. It was about making sure she didn't walk away clean. One evening, about a week after the bar incident, Lisa showed up unannounced at the house. When I opened the door, I immediately regretted it. She looked smug, like she still had the upper hand. We need to talk, she said, pushing past me into the living room. Make it quick, I replied, crossing my arms and watching her pace around. She spun around with her hands on her hips. What exactly do you think you're doing, Greg? Telling everyone about our personal business? You're making me look like the bad guy. I couldn't help but laugh. You are the bad guy, Lisa. Or did you think your affair made you the victim? She glared at me, her lips curling into a sneer. You're pathetic, you know that? Can't even handle this like an adult. Instead, you're running around playing the scorned husband, crying to anyone who'll listen. Her words stung, but I refused to show it. Call me what you want, Lisa. At least I'm not the one who blew up a marriage because I got bored. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. You're going to regret this. You think you're clever, spreading your little story around. You're nothing, Greg. And once this is over, you'll still be nothing. For a moment, anger rose in me like a tidal wave, but then it ebbed quickly. Her words didn't matter anymore. She didn't matter anymore. Get out of my house, Lisa, I said firmly. You're not welcome here anymore. She laughed bitterly. Fine, but don't think this is over. I watched her walk out, and I felt an unexpected sense of peace. It was over, at least for me. Whatever game she wanted to play, whatever revenge she thought she'd get, it didn't matter. I was done letting her control me. That night, I sat alone in the living room, sipping whiskey and reflecting on everything. Lisa's betrayal had broken something in me, but it had also lit a fire I didn't know I had. I wasn't just surviving this. I was reclaiming my life. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in months, I felt like I was moving forward. No matter what Lisa did next, I was ready. The morning after Lisa's latest stunt, I woke up with renewed purpose. Her threats, her lies, her smug arrogance no longer intimidated me. If she wanted to fight, fine, but it wouldn't be on her terms. My first call of the day was to my lawyer. Good morning, Greg, she said briskly. Trust you're ready to move forward? More than ready, I replied. What's our next move? She explained everything. Filing for divorce, freezing assets, securing evidence, making sure I didn't get screwed over. I was already ahead of the game. I had everything compiled. Hotel receipts, messages, witness accounts from the bar, all neatly organized. Excellent, she sounded pleased. This will make things smoother. I'll draft the initial petition and file by the end of the week. Have you considered your stance on the house? That question lingered in my mind long after the call ended. The house wasn't just property. It was a symbol of everything we had built together, now tainted by her betrayal. Part of me wanted to cling to it out of spite. But maybe it wasn't worth the emotional toll. Maybe walking away meant leaving that weight behind. Later that day, I ran into Claire again. She pulled me aside immediately, her voice low and concerned. Greg, you're not going to believe this, but Lisa's been running her mouth. She's telling everyone you pushed her away. She says she only cheated because you were emotionally abusive. I clenched my jaw tight as a familiar sting of betrayal settled in my chest. Figures, I muttered quietly. She's always been good at playing the victim. Claire put her hand on my shoulder reassuringly. Don't let her get to you. People who know you, really know you, can see through her crap. If you need me to back you up, you know I will. Thanks, I replied, genuinely touched by her support. But I think it's time I start handling this myself. That evening, I decided to take a proactive approach. If Lisa wanted to control the narrative, fine. Let her spin her web of lies while I dismantled it, piece by piece. I started contacting key people in our circle, friends, family, co-workers caught in the crossfire. I didn't share every detail, but I made things clear. Lisa's actions had consequences, and I wouldn't let her rewrite history. Most people were supportive. They offered encouragement and expressed disbelief at her behavior. But some hesitated, their loyalty to Lisa evident in their careful words. "Greg," one mutual friend said cautiously, "are you sure this is the best way? I mean, airing everything out?" I cut them off, my tone firm but measured. "I didn't ask for this, but I won't let her walk all over me. She made this public when she brought her lover to that bar. All I'm doing is setting the record straight." A few days later, I got a call from Lisa. It was unexpected, but I wasn't surprised by her tone. Sweet, almost apologetic. It was a classic manipulation attempt. "I've been thinking," she began. "Maybe we should talk. Just the two of us, no lawyers, no drama, just us." I let her words hang in the air, gauging her intent. Classic Lisa, playing nice when it suited her, always with an angle. "What do you want, Lisa?" I kept my voice flat and uninterested. She hesitated, then sighed theatrically. "I just think we owe it to ourselves to have one honest conversation. We've been through so much together." I barked out a laugh. "Honest? Coming from you? That's rich." "Greg, please!" Her tone sharpened. "I'm trying to fix this." "No, Lisa," I snapped back. "You're trying to save face. There's a difference." There was a long silence on the line. When she spoke again, her voice had turned cold. "Fine. Have it your way. But don't think for a second you'll come out of this unscathed." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, finding it almost laughable how she switched between victim and aggressor. She couldn't decide which role suited her better. The next day, I met with my lawyer to finalize the divorce petition. As I was signing the papers, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief, sadness, and an anger that wouldn't go away. "It's normal to feel conflicted," my lawyer said, as if reading my thoughts. "Divorce is never easy, especially under these circumstances, but you're taking the right steps. Trust the process. Trust the process." Easier said than done. But as I walked out of her office, a sense of determination settled in me. This wasn't just about ending a marriage, it was about reclaiming my life. That evening, I got a message from an unknown number. "Greg, it's Lucas. Can we talk?" Lucas, the scumbag. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over delete. Curiosity won out. "Make it quick," I replied. His response came instantly. "I think we both know Lisa isn't who she pretends to be. Meet me tomorrow. I have something you'll want to hear." My pulse quickened as I read his message. What could he possibly have to say? Why now? I didn't trust him, but the prospect of uncovering more of Lisa's lies was too tempting to ignore. I set up a meeting with Lucas for the next day. Whatever he had to say would be another piece of the puzzle, a puzzle I was determined to finish, no matter how ugly the picture became. This was far from over. I arrived at the coffee shop 20 minutes early, my mind racing with possibilities. Lucas's text had been vague, but his tone suggested he wasn't reaching out to gloat. Still, I didn't trust him. A man who would mock someone in public wasn't exactly the pinnacle of integrity. The bell above the door jingled, and in walked Lucas. His confident swagger was gone, replaced by nervous energy that betrayed his unease. He spotted me immediately, hesitated for a moment, then made his way over. "Greg," he said, extending his hand. I didn't take it. "Sit," I said coldly. Lucas sighed and pulled out the chair opposite me. "Fair enough. I deserve that." I leaned back with my arms crossed. "Let's skip the small talk. What do you want?" He ran a hand through his hair, clearly struggling with his words. "Look, I know I've been less than decent to you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I think you should know the truth about Lisa." I raised an eyebrow. "The truth? That she's a liar and a cheater?" "Thanks, but I figured that out myself." Lucas shook his head. "No, it's worse than that." For the next 20 minutes, he spilled everything. Lisa hadn't just cheated with him. She had a long history of manipulation and deceit stretching back years. According to Lucas, she'd been juggling multiple relationships before and during our marriage, always keeping her options open. "She told me you were controlling," he continued. "Said you were emotionally abusive, that you didn't love her anymore. That's why I thought it was okay to get involved." But now I see it was all lies. I laughed bitterly. You needed her to lie to justify sleeping with a married woman? Lucas flinched but didn't argue. You're right, he admitted. I was an idiot. But it wasn't just me. There were others. She has this way of making you feel like you're the only one who understands her, like you're her savior. Then she turns on you. As much as I wanted to dismiss him, his words resonated with me. I had seen that side of Lisa. The victim, the charmer, the manipulator. I remembered how she drew me in years ago. But hearing it laid bare by someone else was like ice water dumped over my head. Lucas reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. This is everything I've got, he said. Messages, pictures, dates. She didn't cover her tracks with me. She thought I'd never turn on her. I think she underestimated how much I'd regret all this. I hesitated before taking the folder, feeling the weight of it heavy in my hands. As much as I despised Lucas, his regret seemed genuine. But I wasn't ready to let him off the hook so easily. Why now? I asked. Why come to me after everything? He looked down at his hands, clearly ashamed. Because she's already moved on. There's another guy. She's doing to me what she did to you. It made me realize she's not just hurting people. She's destroying lives. After Lucas left, I sat in the coffee shop for a long time, flipping through the folder. What I found was damning. Every message, every photo, every receipt was another nail in the coffin of our marriage. As much as it hurt, it gave me a strange sense of validation. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining the red flags. I wasn't overreacting to her behavior. Lisa was exactly who I feared she might be, and now I had proof to show it. That night, I called my lawyer and told her about the new evidence. She was ecstatic. This is gold, Greg, she said enthusiastically. With this, we can push for a favorable settlement. She'll have no leg to stand on. I hung up, feeling a flicker of hope, the first time I'd felt it since this nightmare began. I was finally gaining ground. 2 days later, Lisa showed up at the house again. I hadn't seen her since our last confrontation, and she looked surprised when I opened the door. Greg, her tone was unusually soft. Can we talk? I leaned against the doorframe, blocking her way. What's there to talk about? She hesitated, then sighed. I know I've made mistakes. I've been doing a lot of thinking. I want to try to make things right. I couldn't help but laugh. Make things right? Lisa, you've burned this marriage to the ground. There's no going back. Her expression hardened. So that's it? You're just going to throw everything away? I stared at her, incredulous. You're the one who threw it away. And now you want me to play along with your redemption arc? No. We're done. For a moment, she looked genuinely hurt. But then the mask slipped, and the familiar venom returned. Fine, she spat. But don't think you've won, Greg. I'll fight you every step of the way. I smirked at her. Good luck. You're going to need it. That night, I packed a bag and checked into a hotel. The house, the memories, the ghosts of what once was. It was all too much. I needed space, not just from Lisa, but from the life we had built together. I lay in the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling, experiencing a strange mix of emotions. Anger, sadness, relief, and something else. Freedom. Lisa had taken so much from me, but she hadn't taken everything. I still had my integrity, my strength, and a future that was mine to shape. As far as I was concerned, that future didn't include her. The morning after leaving the house, I woke up to an unexpected calm. The sterile hotel room with its crisp white sheets and bland decor felt oddly liberating. It was a blank slate, untainted by memories of Lisa or the turmoil she had unleashed. I decided to take a walk to clear my head. The crisp air of early autumn filled my lungs, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. Each step was a reminder that I was moving forward, leaving the wreckage behind. By midday, I had a plan. The first step was letting go of things that no longer served me, starting with the house. My lawyer was already drafting a proposal, and I told her to include my intent to relinquish the property. It's a bold move, she said, sounding surprised. Most people fight tooth and nail for the house. I don't want it, I replied firmly. It's just a reminder of what I'm trying to escape. Let her have it if she wants it so badly. She nodded, clearly impressed. That kind of detachment will serve you well, Greg. It's rare. That evening, I met up with Anthony for a drink. We hadn't had a proper sit-down since everything started, and I needed his blunt perspective. You look better, he said, clapping me on the shoulder as I slid onto the bar stool beside him. Thanks, I replied. It feels like I'm finally making progress. He raised an eyebrow. So what's the game plan now? I filled him in on all the developments, the evidence from Lucas, my decision to give up the house, and the legal progress we were making. Anthony listened intently, sipping his beer. When I finished, he leaned back and shook his head. "Man, I don't know how you're staying so calm," he said admiringly. "If it were me, I'd be out for blood." "Oh, don't get me wrong," I said with a smirk. "I'm plenty angry. But I realized something. Lisa thrives on chaos. She wants me to lose control, to play her game. The best revenge is not giving her what she wants." Anthony grinned. "Smart. But don't let her mistake your calm for weakness." "Don't worry," I assured him. "I'm done being weak." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. The legal wheels were turning, and every update from my lawyer brought me closer to freedom. Lucas's evidence proved to be a game changer, painting a vivid picture of Lisa's infidelity and undermining any attempt she might make to spin the narrative. Even as I focused on the logistics, the emotional weight lingered. The nights were the hardest, when the quiet gave way to memories of better times. One night, I couldn't sleep and found myself scrolling through old photos on my phone. There we were at the beach, laughing as waves crashed around us, at a family barbecue with her arms wrapped around me, posing for a group shot. Then I came across one that hit the hardest, a candid of her looking at me with what I thought was love. I deleted every single one. Lisa, of course, wasn't done stirring the pot. A few days later, I got a call from Claire. "She's been talking again," Claire said, her voice tight with frustration. "Now she's claiming you're dragging your feet on the divorce because you're still in love with her." My laugh came out dry and bitter. "Of course she is. Anything to make herself look like the victim." Claire hesitated before continuing. "Greg, I hate to bring this up, but she's also started spreading rumors about your mental health. She's saying you're unstable, that you've been harassing her." My blood boiled. "She's unbelievable." "Don't worry," Claire said quickly. "Nobody who knows you is buying it. But I thought you should know." "Thanks," I replied, my grip tightening on the phone. "She wants to play dirty? Fine, I can handle dirty." The next morning, I filed a formal restraining order against Lisa. My lawyer assured me it was the right move, not just to protect myself, but to establish a paper trail that would counter her lies. "She wants to claim you're harassing her?" my lawyer said confidently. "Let's see how that holds up when she's the one barred from contact." It wasn't just about legal protection, it was about drawing a line in the sand. Lisa had crossed too many, and it was time to push back. That afternoon, I received an unexpected text from Lucas. "She knows I gave you the folder. Be careful." I stared at the message, my mind racing. What was she planning now? "What does she know?" I replied. "Everything. She's furious. Said she'll make us both pay." I should have felt fear, but instead, a strange sense of calm washed over me. Let her try. I wasn't the same man she had manipulated and humiliated. 2 days later, I got another call, this time from Lisa's lawyer. "Mr. Stevens." Her voice was clipped and professional. "My client has expressed a desire to settle this matter amicably. She's willing to negotiate terms that should be mutually agreeable." I couldn't help but laugh. Lisa's sudden shift in strategy was transparent. She was losing control, and she knew it. "I'll review the terms with my lawyer," I said coolly. "But make no mistake, I won't accept anything less than what I'm entitled to." I hung up feeling a sense of triumph. The tides were turning, and for the first time, Lisa was the one scrambling. That night, sitting in my hotel room, I had a moment of reflection. The man I'd been when this started, the naive, trusting husband who believed Lisa's lies, was gone. In his place was someone stronger, sharper, and unafraid to fight for himself. Lisa had underestimated me, and now she was paying the price. The divorce hearing arrived faster than expected, yet I felt ready. My lawyer had prepped me for every possible scenario, and Lucas's evidence ensured Lisa's lies wouldn't hold up under scrutiny. The courthouse was a cold, sterile building, but to me, it felt like the place where I would finally reclaim my life. Lisa arrived flanked by her lawyer, her usual smugness replaced by forced composure. She barely glanced at me, her gaze darting around the room as if searching for a lifeline. For the first time, I saw her for who she truly was. Not the confident, alluring woman I fell for, but a hollow shell built on deception. The hearing itself was uneventful, mostly procedural. My lawyer presented the evidence, and Lisa's team didn't even attempt to dispute most of it. They knew they were cornered. The judge's ruling was swift and decisive. The division of assets leaned heavily in my favor, and the restraining order was upheld. Lisa's face darkened like a storm cloud when the judge announced the verdict. She caught up to me in the hallway afterward. "You think you've won," she hissed. "This isn't over." I looked her dead in the eye. "Oh, it's over, Lisa, and you've got no one to blame but yourself." With the divorce finalized, I began the slow process of rebuilding. I sold off what I didn't need and moved to a smaller apartment in a quieter part of the city. I threw myself into work, and my friends rallied around me, especially Anthony and Claire, making sure I never felt alone during the transition. One evening, while having dinner with Claire, she brought up a question I'd been avoiding. "So, are you going to date again?" she asked, her tone light but curious. I laughed at that. "Not anytime soon. I think I need to focus on me for a while." She nodded understandingly. "That's fair. But when you're ready, don't let what Lisa did stop you from trusting someone again. Not everyone's like her." Her words stayed with me. Lisa's betrayal had shaken my faith in love and partnership, but I refused to let it define me. I wouldn't let her take that from me, too. One day, months after the divorce, I ran into Lucas at a coffee shop. I hadn't seen him since he handed me the folder, and part of me wasn't sure how to feel about him. "Greg," he said, looking genuinely surprised. "Hey, Lucas," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. He shifted awkwardly. How are you doing?" "Better," I said simply. "And you?" He sighed. "Still picking up the pieces. She really did a number on both of us, didn't she?" I couldn't argue with that. "Look," he continued, "I know I've said it before, but I really am sorry. For everything." I studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Apology accepted. But let's not pretend we're friends." He gave a weak smile. "Fair enough." As I walked away, I felt a sense of closure. Lucas was just a footnote in my story, not the villain. The true enemy had always been Lisa, and I had already defeated her. Reflecting on my experience, I realized how much I had learned through this painful journey. I discovered the importance of self-respect, setting boundaries, and standing up for myself. I learned that love without trust is nothing more than an illusion, and no relationship is worth sacrificing your sense of self. But most importantly, I learned that betrayal doesn't break you. It can strengthen you, refine you, and prepare you for something better. One evening, sitting on my balcony and watching the city lights, I felt a strange sense of peace. The chaos of the past year was finally behind me, and the future stretched ahead like a blank canvas. I raised my glass to the night sky in a toast to myself. To the man who survived, who fought back, who came out stronger on the other side. Lisa may have tried to destroy me, but in the end, she only taught me one thing. I'm unbreakable. I can't describe the feeling when I realized I was finally free. Life finally feels like it's mine again. Everything went better than expected, and I'm ready for whatever comes next.